From the Sultanate of Oman television, first the headlines. 3 Palestinians are martyred by the Israeli occupation forces in Jenin, West Bank. Russian missiles hit critical infrastructure in the cities of Kiev and Kharkiv amid conflicting reports on the fate of the town of Solidar. And the death toll of the storms and hurricanes in the southeastern United States rises to 19 victims, and warnings of destructive floods in California by the end of the week. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. 3 Palestinians were martyred in the city of Jenin, northern West Bank, by the Israeli occupation forces. Palestinian sources said that an Israeli special force stormed Jabba town south of Jenin and fired a car, killing 2 Palestinians who were inside it. And the Palestinian Ministry of Health announced the death of a young man in Jenin due to severe injuries caused by the Israeli occupation forces bullets 12 days ago. The Israeli occupation forces escalated their incursions into the West Bank recently, as the number of martyrs during the past 2 weeks reached 12, including 3 children. Gunfire rang out in the small eastern Ukrainian town of Solidar yesterday, where Ukrainian and Russian troops have been fighting each other. Meanwhile, Russian missiles struck critical infrastructure facilities today in Ukraine's Kharkiv and Lviv regions in the country's east and west, respectively, local officials said. Russia had claimed that its forces captured the fiercely contested salt mining town in what would mark a rare victory for the Kremlin after a series of setbacks in its war in Ukraine. However, Ukrainian authorities said the fight for the town continued. Moscow has painted the battles for Solidar and nearby Bakhmut as key to capturing the entire eastern region of the Donbass, and also as a way to grind down the best Ukrainian forces and prevent them from launching counterattacks elsewhere. But that cuts both ways, and Ukraine has said its fierce defense of the eastern strongholds has helped it tie up Russian forces. Since the start of the war on February 24, Moscow has prioritized taking full control of the Donbass, a region made up of the Donetsk and Luhansk provinces, where it has backed a separatist insurgency since 2014. Russia has seized most of Luhansk, but about half of Donetsk remains under Ukraine's control. Czechs continue to cast their votes in the presidential elections as polls closed today. It is scheduled to announce the results later today, and 8 candidates are competing to succeed the current president, Milos Zeman. A second round of polls will be held within 2 weeks if none of the candidates receives more than 50% of the votes in the first elections rounds. With rain-soaked California expected to see several more rounds of stormy weather over the weekend and into next week, state and federal officials pleaded with residents yesterday to stay alert to the possibility of more flooding and damage. A series of storms have walloped the state since late December, leaving at least 19 people dead. Yesterday, 6,000 people were under evacuation orders, and another 20,000 households were without power. Homes have flooded, leaves breached and topped, and mudslides and hurricane-force winds have slammed parts of the state, including a tornado touchdown in Northern California. The ongoing atmospheric river pattern brought showers to Northern California early yesterday, and additional surges of moisture, which will be even stronger, are expected again to spread rain and snow elsewhere in the state over the coming days. Flood warnings were in effect for the Salinas River in an agricultural valley about 90 miles south of San Francisco. At least 20,000 acres of farmland were at risk of flooding. In some parts of Northern California, cars were submerged, trees uprooted, and roofs blown off houses. The head of the United Arab Emirates National Oil Company was named Thursday as president of this year's COP28 climate talks, prompting fierce criticism from environmentalist activists. Sultan Al Jaber, chief executive of the UAE's Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, ADNOC, will be the first CEO to take the role at the UN summit. COP27, held in Egypt in November, concluded with the adoption of a hotly contested text on aid to poor countries affected by climate change, but failed to set new ambitions for lowering greenhouse gas emissions. The UAE, a leading crude producer and one of the world's biggest polluters per capita, will host the next edition in Dubai in November and December. It had the largest contingent of oil and gas lobbyists at last year's talks. The UAE has announced ambitious environmental initiatives, including plans for 20 gigawatts of installed solar capacity by 2030 and a fully operational nuclear power station by 2024. But the Gulf state also forecasts that the oil and gas industry would need to invest more than $600 billion every year until 2030 to keep up with expected demand. The UAE is aiming to develop enough renewable energy for half of its needs by 2050, when it is targeting domestic carbon neutrality, which excludes emissions from exported oil.
Within the plan.
With the participation of over 3,000 citizens, residents and tourists, the second edition of Sohar Walk took place to promote the culture of preventive health among society members and to introduce the participants to some of the historical heritage and tourist attractions in the Wilaya of Sohar. Here is a report.
The second edition of the Sohar Social and Health Walk took place to promote many health values with preventative, psychological, economic, and cultural dimensions, and to enhance harmony and cooperation among members of society.
I have been helping in organizing Sohar Walk too. It's been a fantastic success this morning. We have seen people from all the community, Omani, non-Omani. We've had people from Europe, from Africa, Asia. Everyone has united together today, and this is exactly what was our aim, to bring the community together.
The 8-kilometer Sohar Walk started from Khora Siabi area and ended at Sohar Fort as a symbolization of the historical and cultural heritage of the Wilaya of Sohar.
What a beautiful day, what a beautiful morning. 8 kilometers, 1 hour, 15 minutes. I'm feeling over the moon. As it is said, tough time never lasts, but tough people do. So I'm very excited. Thank you. I had a wonderful time.
Over 3,000 citizens, residents, and visitors from various regions of Sohar and from neighboring wilayas participated in Sohar Walk.
This is the Sultanate of Oman Television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. 3 Palestinians are martyred by the Israeli occupation forces in Jenin, West Bank. Russian missiles hit critical infrastructure in the cities of Kiev and Kharkiv amid conflicting reports on the fate of the town of Solidar. And the death toll of the storms and hurricanes in the southeastern United States rises to 19 victims and warnings of destructive floods in California by the end of the week. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night and stay safe.